Welcome in Saturday morning's game day prediction podcast. As I'm here in Lexington, David's back at the world headquarters, and we're excited that you're here with us on the Red and Blue Crew podcast today. We're excited also to have our Thailand presenting sponsors, the Land Shark and the Velvet Ditch. We would also want to say a special thank you to the Dirt Doctor and our good friends at the Hearn Law Firm. You'll hear more about all of those folks here in just a moment. David, as you can see behind me, downtown is a little ways away, but it is wet today, and that is probably going to play a factor whether it continues to rain or not. A lot of the forecasts have the rain getting out of here well before kickoff, but could be a wet turf.
Yeah, it's wet here in Oxford as well, and cooler, a lot cooler here today. I bought a big bag of chicken last night and planned on grilling it, but I'm not going to stand out in this weather and do it. But similar weather in Lexington and Oxford, no doubt about it. But Brad, 2:30 Central Time, ABC telecast. You know, we've got a showdown between Ole Miss and Kentucky, and I say showdown because I am expecting somewhat of a highly competitive game today. I do think Ole Miss is going to pull away in the end, but who was thinking last year would be such a showdown in Oxford? The Rebels were 4-0, ranked number 6 in the nation, and Stoops and Kentucky came in here and shocked us.
You know, I think you made a good point, and now, a couple days later, I 100% agree with you. The revenge factor is something for the fans. I don't know, at least in the latter part of the game, or should I say after the first couple drives of the game, I don't know if the revenge will be a big component of this. Number one, there are a lot of players on both these teams that were not here last year. Kentucky's roster may have had more of a turnover than Ole Miss, in upwards of 65 players for Kentucky. I don't think revenge is going to play a huge factor, maybe in the beginning. But here's where it might play a factor, David. If, and I say if, Ole Miss is up 31-14 in the fourth quarter, 38-14, I think Lane Kiffin may put the gas down a little bit.
Yeah, I knew where you were heading with that one. And who can blame him? I mean, you look back at, and here we go again. I don't want to belabor the point, but if you look back last year, that Kentucky game is the one you circle that likely kept Ole Miss out of the college football playoffs. An inexplicable 20-17 loss to the Wildcats in Oxford. And, to this day, Brad, I haven't been able to figure it out, to be honest with you, exactly what went wrong that day for Ole Miss and what went right for Kentucky, other than Stoops came in with a hell of a game plan, and it had a lot to do with keeping the ball out of Jackson Dart's hands. Today, however, a fresh face at quarterback for the Rebels with Austin Simmons, and a very smart kid. We all know that. That's been well established. A very talented kid. But he's going to go up against an SEC secondary really for the first time in his career today. Yeah, we had the Georgia game last year, which was not an anomaly. I think Austin showed us what the future holds. But when you look at the Kentucky defense, the most experienced part of their roster is their secondary. They have returners at corner. They have returners at safety. These guys have played the SEC game before.
The latest injury report came out last night. We'll read through that for Ole Miss is concerned. Out 100%, at least as of Friday, yesterday at 7:10 Central, is Jalen Braxton, the defensive back, wide receiver Traylon Ray, tight end Luke Haas, cornerback Dante Core, offensive lineman Terez Davis, and wide receiver Samari Reed. Questionable is cornerback Ricky Fletcher, and probable is wide receiver Caleb Cunningham. Pretty good news for Ole Miss. You would have liked to have had Terez Davis, but not on this list, Delano Townsend, David.
Yeah, and he could provide depth on the offensive line. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think we're going to see Townsend on the field at some point today. But, Brad, I don't know. I really think this game comes down to the part that we're not going to actually see play out on the field today. tangibly, but I think it comes down to game planning. And again, I go back to last year. Kentucky won the game planning war. I don't think Lane Kiffin allows that to happen this year. Um, and look, I think Ole Miss is going to win this game. Um, I don't know about how many, because I'm going to tell you something. Kentucky is not a terrible team. They proved that last week when they took a MAC contender down, and that's Toledo. And Toledo, of course, as we all remember, went to Starkville last year and beat Mississippi State on their way to an 8-5 season. And you know, the MAC plays good football, and so I would not discount entirely what Kentucky did in week one.
I said all along, and one of my keys to victory last night for Ole Miss is don't allow Kentucky to get into a rock fight with you. That's what
Mm-hmm.
happened last year. Don't allow Mark Stoops, who's brilliant at muddying up a game plan and forcing you out of your comfort zone. Um, I'm with you, David. I think the key to victory tonight, this afternoon for Ole Miss, is play your game, play within yourself, game plan, learn from last year. And at the end of the day, I think Ole Miss wins big today, regardless. We talk about the weather. As you see behind me, it is raining in Lexington. But by kickoff, the weather, it'll be high 60s and the weather should be gone. I think looking at the season in its totality, David, I'd love your thoughts on this. I'm of the opinion if you can't come to Lexington and win handily, then Ole Miss has bigger problems.
Yeah, you look at the Ole Miss schedule, and Brad, I can easily find 10 wins, but I can very tangibly find 5 losses on this schedule. Um, so I think this is a team whose ceiling is 10-2 and above, and whose floor is 7-5. And I truly believe that when you talk about Tulane, and that's not going to be an easy one. All of a sudden, that turns into like a premier non-conference game. Tulane at Ole Miss. Then you've got to play LSU. Then you've got to play Georgia. Then you've got to play Florida. You got to go on the road to Oklahoma. And the Georgia Oklahoma games are in back-to-back weeks. You play both of those in an 8-day span, a 7-day span. So you can find 5 losses without shaking your head on this Ole Miss schedule. But again, you can see where this Ole Miss team, if everything comes together, can go 10-2 or better. So, we're still in the early stages of the season, but at 2:30 today, Oxford time in Lexington, we're going to find out a lot about this football team, I do believe.
And once again, I go back to what I originally said: a path to 10-2, and an opportunity to play in the college football playoff. 100% must include a win here today. I don't think Ole Miss has a path to 10 wins without a win today in Lexington. 7-5 is on the table. Should you lose today, then all of a sudden that game next week with Arkansas coming to town, who's got Arkansas State later on today, that becomes humongous. Where I think it's Ole Miss's best interest. I think everyone should had thought Ole Miss would be undefeated headed into the LSU game this year. Last year, we felt Ole Miss should be undefeated heading into the it was Georgia, I believe, wasn't it, David?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they lost
Similar.
that early game to Kentucky last year and then would beat Georgia at home. So I think this year's just different. Last year had so many anomalies in it. The year before, Ole Miss was 4-0 in one score games. Last year they were 1-3, 0-3. It was close. I mean, most of their games were blowouts last year.
Well,
Those were
you you,
holding to
lo-
that.
you lost to LSU, you lost to Florida,
Kentucky.
uh, and Kentucky, and I mean, all three of those could have been victories.
Yeah, and I think the rest of the games were larger spreads than one score. And speaking of spreads, this game opened up at 9.5, jumped to 10.5, 11 at some books. Then it plummeted, and then it feels like some of the smart money's come in on Ole Miss. I haven't checked this morning, but it was 9.5 when I went to bed. So a lot of the smart money coming in on the Rebels. I do expect it to somewhere land around 10 points, 9.5 or 10. So Ole Miss needs to do what it does best: control the football, not allow it to be a rock fight. Let Austin Simmons do what he does so well, managing this offense. And a name that we haven't mentioned yet was a bright, shining star last week, David. That's Kawan Lacey.
Oh, no doubt about it. And it's going to be important today for Ole Miss to counter Kentucky with a ground game of its own. We know Kentucky has a very talented running back in Dante Dowdle, a native of Picayune, Mississippi, a guy Ole Miss recruited heavily, was on campus a whole bunch. So everybody's familiar with Dante Dowdle, the well-traveled Dante Dowdle. Let me say that. He's jumped all around college football. So, yeah, I mean, it's important that Kawan Lacey is able to run. And Kentucky's got a pretty good defensive line, I believe. Guys coming out of the portal, things like that. I think that's going to be a tough assignment for the Ole Miss offensive line today. But I don't think it's anything they can't conquer. The assignments are only going to get tougher as this season gets deeper.
The good news, though, Silver and Walker, those two names, 0 and 5, I think it was two. I think 0 and 5 last year on the defensive front. They're no longer with the program, so that's good news. They wreaked havoc on that Mark Stoops defense last year for Kentucky. Two more names that are not on the roster this year: Dane Key and Barian Brown. Those are two
Woo!
names. They absolutely lit Ole Miss up last year.
Let
They're
me let me
not
tell you
on the
something.
roster. Neither is I think he was Vandergriff, the quarterback, who's now in insurance. It'll be the yeoman, well traveled Zach Zalcata. I cannot say his last name. Zalcata, Calzada, and he'll be the
Calzada.
quarterback tonight for Kentucky.
Well,
Look, David. This game comes down to ball control. It comes down to game planning. I agree with you, and I think that definitely leads me to have more of an emphasis that I'm picking Ole Miss in this.
Ole Miss fans will remember the Rebels went hard after both Dane Keys and Barry and Brown. And let me tell you, Barry and Brown, he's on the LSU roster now. Incredible talent. As you saw last year, incredible wide receiver, incredible special teams guy. So I'm glad both those guys are no longer there. But, you know, Kentucky's got talent, Brad. They went heavily in the portal. And, in Lexington, look, let's not kid ourselves. Lexington is not a difficult place to play, not by SEC standards. You're not going into Tuscaloosa or Athens or Gainesville here, or even Oxford for that matter, because it's just not. I mean, it's a subdued place. I mean, I'm sure you've been to games before there, right? Have you been to games?
It was in
Yeah.
the early 2000s when I came, and a lot has changed since then. I will say that I've had a couple of conversations with some people, and they're of the opinion that if Kentucky's in the game in the fourth quarter and it's close, then that's when the stadium gets loud. So I think if Ole Miss distances itself and does what they need to do, you're right. It probably will not be a difficult environment. Look, the temperature here in Lexington is not incredibly cool for Mark Stoops. It's on the warmer side, and I understand they beat a good Toledo team, but they didn't look great on offense at all. If it wasn't for Dante Dowdle, I don't know if they would have actually won the game. I mean, he kind of took it over. Calzada did not impress very many people, and so the fan base is not just billowing over with Mark Stoops. So that's definitely something to monitor for the Kentucky Wildcats down the road. They're putting a lot into this game. Obviously, they see an opportunity with an Ole Miss team coming in here earlier on. You know, Kentucky's always much better in the first half and the back half of the schedule. But at the end of the day, David, what are your three keys to victory for Ole Miss?
Yeah. Number one, Austin Simmons. He's got to have a solid day. You want to see Austin with a great stat line, over 300 yards passing. I think at the end of the day. Number two, the offensive line. You've got to have a great effort against an SEC opponent today. Um, no miscues, no holding penalties, and you got to try to exert your authority on that Kentucky defensive front. And look, all of my keys are on the offensive side of the ball because I don't think I'm kind of like you. I wasn't overly impressed with Kentucky's offense versus Toledo last week, other than Dante Dowdle. And number three is, and this goes along with number two, Ole Miss has to have a ground game. that will counter what Kentucky and Dante Dowdle are able to do on exactly what you brought up earlier. Keywan Lacey needs to have a big day and break off some big runs. And I think last week, if you look, I mean, the Rebels had a 40-yard run, a 30-yard run. There need to be explosive plays from the ground game. Those would be my three keys, Brad. Austin Simmons, offensive line, ground game. I think
Yeah,
Pete's defense is going to show up.
yeah, and I think gap protection is huge for this Ole Miss defense to make sure they don't have any busted assignments. Obviously, that would allow Dowdle to get down the field. I think important for Ole Miss to solidify that running game. What's that going to do? It's going to open up that
Well,
pass.
it's going to open up the passing game. Absolutely. That's exactly what it's going to do. And then you don't have these big edge rushers pinning their ears back coming after Simmons every play.
Yeah,
I mean, that they've got to play it honestly. And that's what you want to do. You want to have a balanced attack. I think that ideally what Lane Kiffin wants to put on the field is a balanced attack. I still think it remains to be seen, A, whether Keywan Lacey, Logan Diggs, and company stay healthy all year, and B, whether or not this Ole Miss offensive line can authoritatively push around an SEC defensive front. And that's a big opportunity for those guys today.
he's David Johnson. I'm Brad Logan. We appreciate you joining us here on the Red and Blue Crew podcast. Could not do what we do without you, the listener. We just want to say thank you. And I want to take a page out of my friend Brian Haydad's, who covers Mississippi State, and says, thank you to all of our servicemen and women who so proudly serve our country. And thank you for tuning in. And thank you most importantly for serving our country. I want to thank our sponsors today, the Velvet Ditch and the Land Shark. They've been with us from the beginning. We appreciate Jared and his entire team. It's a wonderful place in Oxford. We encourage you to go by and tell them you heard about it on the Red and Blue Crew podcast. I know a lot of you do that, and we appreciate that. We're
Hey,
also grateful.
get the
Yeah,
Cajun mac and cheese. It is incredible. And I have found during my little illness I'm going through here that that's one of the rare things I can eat is the Cajun mac and cheese. It is awesome.
they've got a lot of dishes, and we're grateful that they're with us here on the Red and Blue Crew podcast. Also, the Hearn Law Firm and the Dirt Doctor, grateful for their sponsorship as well. 2:30 Central in Mississippi, 3:30 Eastern here in Kentucky. It's Ole Miss and Kentucky, the very first SEC game. We'll have all the recaps for you following the game, following the press conference. You can join us here on the Red and Blue Crew podcast. For David, I'm Brad. Yes, sir.
Hold on one second.
I got you.
I'm gonna do a Lee Corso. And the winner is I can't get that thing on my head as big as Eli's head is. I can't get his helmet on my big head. Ole Miss. Ole Miss is gonna
The
win.
headgear, the helmet pick is the Ole Miss Rebels, and I'm with David. I think Ole Miss, and I picked this thing 38-17. I think the Rebels win by a couple of scores as they get ready for Arkansas next week. We'll see soon enough as it's the Rebels and Kentucky here from Lexington. Join us post game as we'll be live from Kroger Field, and we will talk to you following the game right here on the Red and Blue Crew podcast.
Howdy toddy, everybody.